Welcome back. In compliance with Chapter 551 Open Meetings of the Texas Government Code, I call to order a regular voting meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Austin Independent School District for Thursday, February 26, 2026 at 6:22 p.m. A quorum of the board is physically present at Austin ISD Central Office to conduct this meeting, which is being broadcast on cable channel 22 through Spectrum is-down broadband and on channel 99 through AT&T Uverse. Closed captioning in English is available on these platforms for individuals who are deaf and hard of hearing. Welcome and thank you for joining us again. We'll start with public testimony for items on our consent agenda. As before, people wishing to participate in public testimony called a dedicated AISD phone line ahead of the meeting to sign up to speak in person or audio record remarks. And tonight we have one person signed up to speak in person and 4 who left a recorded message. We'll begin with in-person testimony. Callers are allotted 1 minute, and our in-person speaker for tonight is Amy Moore.
Hi, my name's Amy Moore, and I'm here about agenda item 8.2. I'm just here to ask that AISD work with all of our TIP, TAP, and possible 1882 campus teachers and admin to create a volunteer program to provide meaningful support to next year. In addition to parent and PTA volunteers, there are over 75 community volunteers working in classrooms at Webb, Dobie, and Martin this year. They've been a consistent presence in some math classrooms that haven't had a consistent teacher this year. Which I fear will be the case more so next year as TEA rules are difficult around staffing at our TIP, TAP, and 1882 campuses. Volunteers, if trained and deployed correctly, can help relieve some of the stress that our overworked campuses are facing. I urge you to work on a concerted volunteer effort across our district to be ready for this next school year. I also want to give a huge public thank you to Sandra G., David T., Angel T., and Isadora Day. Without the help of these AISD folks, there would not be 75 volunteers at our campuses this year. Let's just be more intentional, more focused, and issue a citywide call to engage and not waste the community resources we have. Thank you.
Thank you for being here with us. Next up, we'll play the recorded messages for public testimony, so please listen carefully.
My name is Gabe Hernandez, and I'm a Blackshear parent. I know today you guys are talking about Blackshear's lip, but I did want to talk about the Blackshear tap that we're taking on next year. Particularly, I'm calling to request a delay in making a decision on what to do with the new campus. I think a decision right now is based on a construction timeline, and it rushes through decision-making that should take into account the needs of the new consolidated community. I think with the inherited tap coming up, resources should be focused on the academic success and not a new building. We're facing a reality where Blackshear is the only one non-tap elementary school that is closed. I know you call this a campus move, but it's a campus closure, and this would be a backdoor restart for Oak Springs, which the board voted against in November.
Hi, my name is Rachel Bowden, and I'm a Blackshear parent. I called earlier tonight on the hearing, and I wanted to expand on those comments in connection with Blackshear and its local improvement plan, as well as its future as an elementary school campus. We understand the importance of new construction for the Oak Springs community, but we urge the design to be reconsidered to help Blackshear continue serving our students and leveraging our valuable location near Keeling and Houston Toad Fest. Specifically, we think that the district should seriously consider returning Oak Springs to its original purpose, serving younger students. For example, K through 2 or early childhood through kinder. We know that this is done at other campuses in Austin, and we think that allowing Blackshear to continue serving older students would really help leverage our campus's success and allow for both historic campuses to continue. Thank you for your consideration.
My name is Cuitlava Guerra, and I'm asking for trustees to please vote no on GF local public complaints because there is a structural conflict that makes it impossible for complaints to fully present their case. The legal department not only advises on grievances, it also oversees public records responses. Parents face a 45-day timeline to obtain key documents, while GF Local only keeps only a 15 business day window to file, and then restricts the ability to supplement the record after level 1 hearings. In my experience, records that are required to be maintained under federal law have not been provided during the grievance time frame at all. Under this policy, the same office that controls access to documents also benefits from rules that block parents from adding those documents later. That is not fairness. That is structural disadvantage. The filing deadline should be extended to at least 60 days for parents, and the right to supplement the record must be protected at all levels, especially when records have been delayed or withheld by the same department that now has all the concentrated power in this process. That is why I'm asking you to vote no on this agenda item until these changes can be made. Thank you.
Hello, trustees. My name is Lisa Flores. Trustees, please vote no on GF Local because there's a structural conflict that makes it impossible for complainants to fully present their case. The legal department not only advises on grievances, it also oversees public records and responses. Parents face a 45-day timeline to obtain key documents, while GF Local keeps only a 15 business day window to file and then restricts the ability to supplement the record after record level 1. In my experience, records that are required to be maintained under federal law have not been provided during the grievance timeframe at all. Under this policy, the same office that controls access to documents also benefits from rules that block parents from adding those documents later. That is not fairness. That is a structural disadvantage. The filing deadline should be extended to at least 60 days for parents, and the right to supplement the record must be protected at all levels, especially when records have been delayed or withheld. Thank you so much. Please vote no.
Thank you. This concludes our public testimony. Thank you to all of our callers and our in-person speaker. And as a reminder to our community, you can also email the board at trustees@austinisd.org. We are going to very briefly recess our open meeting at 6:28 p.m. to move to a short executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Sections 551.074 and 551.071. As soon as we're finished with the executive session, we'll return to the open meeting to continue. Thank you. Hi, welcome back. We will now, and thank you for your patience, we'll now reconvene the open meeting at 6:47 p.m. And our next item is a brief president's report. I want to take a moment to remind everyone that early voting is underway. It ends tomorrow, February 27th. Both tonight and tomorrow, there are some polling places open until 10 p.m. in Travis County. You can get information at votetravis.gov. And election day for the primary is on Tuesday, March 3rd. Next item is committee reports. As usual, we've posted the written reports as an attachment to this item on our board docs agenda. That's item number 4.1. It includes a committee report for the board policy committee and the Austin Education Fund. And the next item is the superintendent's report.
All right, thank you, trustees. Happy to provide a brief, somewhat brief, I should say, report. The first topic I'd like to cover is just an update regarding Mendez Middle School. As we've communicated, AISD is taking back Mendez Middle School for awareness purposes. Mendez Middle School has been operating under a charter partner for quite some time. The current partner has been operating since 2022. The process for Austin ISD has to be very intentional. We want to make sure we maintain academic momentum. We want to make sure we incorporate community, want to incorporate programming, and that requires us engaging, and that's what the plan includes. As anything else with Austin ISD, when we have efforts like this, we create transition teams, and you can see here on this next slide who is responsible for each of these elements of work. As the project managers, we have Stephanie McGraw and Executive Director Marlo Mallet, and the Executive Director, the leads over the entire project are Dr. Angel Wilson. We always create committees to ensure that we are getting the full purview of support within Austin ISD. You can see those committees listed in the left, and then the types of meetings occurring. The one thing I'll be very, very clear about is we are having intentional conversations with the community throughout the entire process. I was very fortunate to participate in one just a couple days ago. But what I want to point out here is that you're going to see these occur over the next many months. In some of these conversations, we're very clear that we don't have answers yet because we need to hear community voice before we arrive at the final solution. It has to be done with community voice. There are different elements of academic success that we're wanting to reinforce this plan with, including academic rigor, ensuring that we have pathways within the vertical biliteracy and multilingualism. We have talked about the opportunity here, so making sure we lean into that. And then, as always, and perhaps even more importantly, as we bring a school back into our I don't know, I want to say operations. That sounds too, I don't know, sounds too binary. Like, what's back into the family, I guess is what I would say. Students experience a stable, inclusive learning environment. And these have always been our students, but it's been operated under a partner, and now we have to be very intentional that we continue to see the growth, but we're able to incorporate different elements that align with who Austin ISD is. One of the things that we've been doing also is just ensuring that there's extreme awareness within the feeder schools around the opportunities for students. You can see here listed the choice sheet events that are occurred or are occurring or scheduled to occur. It's always important to note that there are students in Mendez, rising 7th graders and 8th graders, who have been with the partner, and so we want to be very intentional. So you'll see refinement grade level by grade level, just to ensure that our students have a welcoming, loving experience as they transition into Austin ISD operating. One thing that's also very important is that we identify the leader of this campus. Back on February 11th, we had our principal profile building conversation. We had families, we had trustees attend, students, and new staff members. It was great. That feedback always helps inform the decision. We do it anytime we hire a new leader for our campus. What's important to note here is that we need to identify this leader sooner than later. The reason being is this person is going to help us continue to build and strengthen our relationship with the community, ensure that we're engaging with the feeder elementary schools and the high school, but also be very involved and kind of lead this transition. This is not too dissimilar to the same timeline we had when we launched General Marshall for the trustees that were around at that time. It's a very similar timeline. February, March, we hire. They were hired on as a principal, continue through the spring semester, and then enter the summer fully staffed, with the master schedule, with everything set and ready to go for a successful fall launch. We also have enrollment efforts. I was actually able to attend this community event just a couple of days ago. It was great. Had lots of conversation with families and even students, learned a lot about things that we want to incorporate into the program at Mendez. Very exciting event, just very appreciative of all of the staff showing up and supporting, and also the great questions we had from students and parents. And all of this is very meaningful and will absolutely help inform how we move forward in welcoming the Mendez back into Austin ISD. As far as an update regarding hiring, right now, as our trustees know and our community knows, there are lots of transitions occurring in Austin ISD. We need to make sure that we have staff hired through the spring semester. This is an update of where we are as of the time this report was drafted. So 27.59% overall of the positions have been filled. We will continue to work and build the team out. So really excited about that work, and once the new leader is here, they will certainly finish that effort. We are asking our families and community members to get involved. One of the ways that you can do it is through our campus CAC. As the school goes through a transition, it's a great opportunity. We have invited families at the last event to participate. We also have signups for volunteering at the campus. And just so our trustees are aware, at the community meeting, there are lots of questions about how to participate, how to support, and we certainly connected those families with the right individuals to make sure that was done. So we're very, very excited about really about the next year for Mendez Middle School. Also want to provide a brief update on additional days school years pilot, also known as ADSI. You may hear that acronym around. This is a program that is supported by the agency But what it allows us to do is to incorporate full-day learning camps, Saturday learning opportunities, and also 6 extra instructional days within our calendar. There are some things that we have to work through regarding professional development hours, but it is a real opportunity to increase instructional days and in time, and at the same time also provide opportunities in the summer. And so as we move forward, we've been engaged with principals, we've had conversations with staff, we've been working with the agency to see how this could work, and actually having conversations with other districts to see how they've implemented. We believe that there will be an opportunity for this within Austin ISD. The exact schools have yet to be determined. It is a pilot, so you will not see this district-wide. No need for concern there, but we do feel like there are lots of great opportunities regarding ADSI, and we'll provide more updates as the pilot progresses. Lastly, before I transition over to finance, I want to provide an update regarding the board meeting cadence. We've had questions over the last couple months, and so just wanted to be really clear about how the cadence of meetings for our board goes throughout the year, so our families and staff are aware. We have generally 2 board meetings each month. Sometimes we have more, but but very few times have we had less, except for July. And the first board meeting is named the information session. This is on the first or second Thursday of the month. This is really where we preview items that will be approved later in the month. And this is also the time where we provide our monitoring updates. Now, sometimes you'll see that move around if there's a conflict or perhaps data is not released at the time that we expect. But generally speaking, what you'll see at the board information sessions are monitoring updates, information around different initiatives, as well as preview of agenda items. The board voting meeting, which is the one we're on now, it's really where the board will take action on any actionable items. The superintendent's update is also tied to this meeting as well, and that is generally the cadence over the course of the year. When it comes to posting timelines for board meetings, we posted for the board meeting review on Friday, 2 weeks prior to the meeting. Board questions related to agenda items are submitted by Tuesday, 1 week prior to the meeting, and posted to the public at least 3 business days before. And our practice is always to post on Friday, 1 week before the meeting. And the one thing I'll say about each of the data points, I guess the information, the presentations that we provide to our trustees, each one is slightly different. The monitoring reports are very structured. They're data-driven. There's a structure to them that's been, we worked with our Lone Star governance coach at the time to produce, and it's in alignment with our scorecard. The information topics sometimes can vary in format, and sometimes we get information very, very late. An example of this might be, like I just did the superintendent update, and there are pictures from Mendez Middle School, which occurred 2 days ago, right? So there are just some elements are more flexible, but generally speaking, we try to be very, very clear regarding and have clear expectations of when each of these submissions are made public and when they are made available to the board for comment. And so with that, I'll transition into the fiscal forecast, which is part of the agenda and part of the board calendar as far as budget calendar. And so I'll have Katrina Montgomery kind of walk us through this presentation.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Segura. So we're going to start with the multi-year fiscal forecast. And a forecast is just a forward-looking, long-term financial sustainability document. And so you're going to understand that there's a difference between our forecast and the budget. This early forecasting allows us to be responsible with our planning time. So we've been working on the budget since late November or December, but looking at this fiscal forecast kind of helps us know which way we're going to go for FY 25-26, which is our current fiscal year, as well as next year for FY 26-27. The one thing I just want to make sure that this forecast is not a budget, it is just a forecast. Thank you. So the fund balance policy, the district has The board has approved a fund balance policy to be increased to 20%, 15% for FY 24-25 through FY 26-27. And then as of June 27th, so the 27th, 28th year, we have to be back to 20%. And under the policy, you'll see actual and target. So FY 24-25, even though our policy said 15%, we came in at 18.9%, which was a positive for the district. For FY 25-26, our target is 15%. FY 26-27, our target is 17%. And then, of course, for 27-28, the target is 20%. What we're trying to do here is to make sure that we don't stay at 15% and then get to 27-28 and get to 20%. So fiscal forecast. So this page has a lot going on. So let's walk through it. So the second column has our adopted budget. That hasn't changed, right? We had our net change between our revenue, recapture, and operating expenditures showed that we had $111 million that we had to make up. We did property monetizations. There were 2 properties for $45 million in total. And then we had pending strategies of $47 million to get us to the deficit of $19 million when we adopted the budget in June. Now what we're projecting for FY 25-26 is that we're going to have a difference of $136 million. So I want to talk about we'll talk about a little bit in more detail the difference between the net change of the $111 million and the $136 million on the next slide. Then we have property monetizations. As I pointed out in the adopted budget, we had $45 million. One property is going to close in this fiscal year, FY 25-26, which is $17 million. And then if you just go over a little bit to the right, you'll see the second property at $26 million, which is projected to close in FY 26-27. Going back to the projected column, you have pending strategies of $2 million. That's additional reductions for special education. Contract cuts, they've been doing a really good job, but this is an additional amount. And then when I presented at the info session, if you look at actual versus budget in December of 2025, we were under budget by $29 million. So what we wanted to show is how well we're doing the work. And the work that we're doing is by reducing our expenses. And then you're going to see the board policy alignment. So this is our forecast, and what we want to be able to explain to you is where we need to get to 15%. So if you go down to the bottom, you can see that there's a 15% at the bottom of the page. And in order for us to get there, we will have to reduce an additional $39 million for this current fiscal year. For FY 26-27, you can see that our revenue has decreased. Our recapture has also decreased, and we also have operating expenditures decrease. But the deficit that we would have without anything, just with looking at those 3 areas, would be $166 million. We have the property monetization of $26 million, and then we have pending strategies of $20 million. So one of the things we've been doing over the last few years is we've been reducing our deficit by controlling our expenses. And so this $20 million is collapsing only department vacancies, so all vacancies, and that's $20 million. So what that will do is it will help us in 26-27, but it will also help us in future years. And that's the work that we need to do. We've been doing a good job reducing expenses, but we have to start making permanent cuts or reducing the budget. And so then let's go back to FY 26-27. And so to get to 17%, which you saw on the previous slide, that means the additional amount that we have to find is $125 million. So when we see that number, we are already working on strategies of how we can do this. We have a document that says this is the number and how we're going to propose that we do this. It is not fully fleshed out, but we are working towards coming up with the specific plan of how we can reduce the $125 million. That's one. The second thing we can do in FY 26-27 is the district can come in at 15%, which would reduce the $125 million to $110 million. But the thing we want to be careful at when we do that is that would mean we'd have to make up 5% in FY 27-28. So we really want to be strategic to not overwhelm the system all in one year. And then you have FY 27-28 forecast. You can see that you have your revenue, your recapture, operating expenditures, and then we're saying that we would have to have an additional $24 million of reductions or additional revenue to get us to the 20%. So the next slide, FY 25-26, this slide just we want to be really clear about how we got from the $19 million deficit this fiscal year to the $49 million deficit. And there's quite a few things that happened, right, during this year. So our enrollment decreased, which had an impact on our ADA. And one of the things we've talked about is even though our enrollment decreased, our ADA didn't decrease at the same level, but that's still a financial increases our deficit. We lost some additional funding on SHARs, and our property values went down from a -2% to a -4%. So that all of those things equal approximately $23 million. We've had additional funding requests this fiscal year totaling $15 million. And then a property monetization that we talked about under the adopted budget was $45 million, but when the property moved to the next year, that was $26 million, and the second property came in less than what we budgeted. So that's an additional $2 million difference. You have implemented strategies and reductions of $11 million, of which we've already accounted for. We talked about the $2 million for the SPED contracts. So what this $23 million here is the difference between when we passed the adopted budget, we knew we had $47.5 million worth of reductions to make, and we knew that we could do that. And so now with all of these other things that have happened, there is an additional $23 million. Right? So then this is all of the ways that we got from the $19 million deficit that we passed in June till the $49 million deficit that we're projecting now. So if you look at the strategies we've had for this fiscal year, we have a hiring freeze, which started in January. That's going to help us continuously reduce, because the number that you saw previously was through December. So the hiring freeze had not been enacted yet. You have additional revenue related to stop-arm buses. Chris and his team got a new vendor, and so the revenue is coming in higher than we projected. P-card limitation adjustments, we've been reducing the amount of spend for P-cards. From July through January, we've reduced $1.3 million from last year to this year. And then pre-approval process, everything has to go through an approval process, whether it goes through your executive director or your officer, and then finally through me. So on this last slide here, we're going to talk about operating capacity. So the superintendent and I were meeting, and we were drawing something up. And so this is the clearest way that we can make sure that everyone understands where we are, because we understand that there's a lot of numbers and it's a lot going on. But if you look at our revenue, we're projecting or forecast for 26-27 is $1.4 billion. The recapture is $610 million. And so those two numbers should be pretty relatively fixed. Then our amount available for operating expenditures should be $823 million. So that's the easy way to look at. That's what our operating expenditures should be. And what we're forecasting now is that our operating expenditures are $989 million. So this is the easiest way for us to see why year over year we're having a deficit, because our operating expenditures are always higher than the revenue less recapture. This slide, I wanted to show this slide. I want us to be clear that there's a difference between the forecast and the budget, but some of the information we used in the forecast is, even though the team is projecting that enrollment would stay the same, and we're going to hire for enrollment that they're projecting, we're still going to build our budget at a smaller rate for everything else. It's going to be at enrollment of 66,000 instead of 69,000. Our average daily attendance, instead of at snapshot, it was 62,000. It's going to be at 60,000. And then our property value change, the estimate from TCAD was between a 3% and 5% property value. In the past, last year, we went in the middle, and we still had to add an additional -2%. So we're going to go at the high mark to have a property value decrease of 5%. The next slide is just an overview of the engagement that the team has been doing. We want to make sure that we're speaking to whoever invites us, so we can make sure that we're telling the story about the things that we're implementing and changing at Austin ISD. And on this very last slide, on Saturday, February 28th, from 11 to 12, we have our first virtual session with the community. And that's the end of the presentation, and I'm here to answer questions.
Thank you so much for all of this and for the superintendent's report. So now we have the opportunity to ask questions or clarifications about both the fiscal forecast and the superintendent's report. So who has questions? Trustee Singh.
I wanted to see if we could get a copy of that presentation emailed to us. Is it, because I don't think I see it in Board Docs. Is it there?
This one, it's up there.
It is? Okay, maybe I just,
Click the last one.
okay. That's trustee questions.
Oh, no, then it's not.
Oh, it's on the superintendent's report. Okay, this budget presentation. Okay, I was looking in the wrong spot. Okay, can you please pull up the slide that had the 29 million that we need to find to cut this year? Oh, 30. Oh, God. Yeah. Yeah, that was way at the end of the board meeting. Okay, so I guess my question is, where's that $39 million going to be cut from?
So this is where budget, forecasts, and projections all come together. Some of that's going to be made up on our lack of spend. It may have not been clearly said, but you see actual versus budget, December 2025.
Mm-hmm.
So in the months from July 1 through December, we have picked up 29 million, right? So we're spending less. So out of the last couple of presentations, we showed like a cumulative budget and a cumulative expense, and there's that margin. That margin is only going to continue to grow, right? So that will contribute to that 39. So that's a big part of it. And I don't know if you remember last year, there was at one point, we were like 110 million, then it was like 98 million, 90 million, 85 million, and then we ended up like at 70, no, what did we end up? 78 million. The challenge we have, Trustee Singh, is it's how much of that to incorporate at this point, given that we're halfway through the year, right? But that number is going to grow. So a lot of that will be picked up by that. There'll be some other adjustments we make, but they're not going to be, like there aren't cuts that you can make that are going to be like the largest portion of that. It's really things that we're not doing.
Okay.
And like spending wisely. And this is where if our budget was, this is not going to sound weird, but if the budget was tighter across the entire system, then that number wouldn't exist in the same way. Like you wouldn't have that margin, but then that difference wouldn't be at the net. It wouldn't net out that high either.
So do you feel like we're going to be able to make up that 49 million by the end of this fiscal year?
Oh, we have to.
39 million.
39 million.
Or 39, sorry.
Yeah, 39 million. Well, I feel very confident that what we've done already on our current trajectory will make up the majority of it. There'll be some other things that we have to look at, but the majority of it will be made up.
Okay.
And does that make sense? I'm not sure if what I'm saying makes sense, but like, so if I budget $100 for the entire, I don't know.
No, it's fine. You don't have to get, I guess what would be helpful for the next time we get this, this was a really good presentation, it's super clear. It might be helpful just to have like a paragraph, like narrative or something that just explains like your perspective on
Yeah.
like should we be freaking out right now or
Yeah.
not? Like that's what I want to know. And like where do we expect, so it is comforting to know that you think that we are going to be able to make up this 39 million. But that's not really, I don't really see that in here, so I think
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
helpful to kind of hear your.
No, I appreciate that, Trustee Singh. And do you remember last year in April, May, we had a very difficult conversation on the dais here about going below 20%, right? And I remember that conversation very vividly because it was hard to have that conversation. And one of the things that we knew is if we were tighter and we managed better, we would pick up a lot of it. And at the end, you saw that we ended up at 17.6% was the final fund balance.
18.1.
18.1, and we thought we at one point be 14. And so this is really budget management. It's being really thoughtful about spend. There are cuts to be made. I'm not necessarily as concerned about 25, 26. Forecasting 26, 27, 27, 28. That's where the work needs to come in. You know, one of the things that drove that biggest margin was one of the properties not being able to close in this fiscal year. Right? That's how sensitive it is. So the other question becomes, if we cut something knowing that a future cash injection is coming, that cut could hurt you pretty significantly, and the fiscal year timing is really what we're kind of navigating in between. So those are conversations Katrina and I have. I mean, there is extreme urgency. No one should leave this meeting thinking that there isn't a lot of work to do or hard work to do over the next couple of years, or this year for next year, or even the following year. But as far as this year goes in making up that gap, we're confident we'll make up much of it just based on what we've done already. There's still some work to do, but much of it based on what we've done already. Would you agree, Katrina?
I agree. I do want to add one part. What Superintendent Segura talked about, remember we showed the slide when he talked about the budgeting process? Year over year, we have a deficit, but we always do better. And I think I've heard you say, President Boswell, where's the magic, right? What Superintendent Segura is saying, we have to do better in our budget process. So we have to get the budget as lean as possible. Yes, it is a strategy to say, I'm going to do a deficit and then come in better. Everybody's happy. Yeah, that's great. But our budget process needs to be tighter. So one of the ways we're going to do this is with vacancies. Everything needs to be tighter. So when we pass the budget, there shouldn't be all of these large swings at the end of the year.
Okay, that's helpful. And then, Ms. Montgomery, you mentioned something about the next school year, 26, 27, and the possibility of dipping below 17.1%. I think I heard you say something like that, and then recommend against that. Thank you, because I would have a really hard time approving a budget in June that put us below a 17.1% fund balance. Just letting you know.
Well, the policy says 15, but we're beating.
I know, but we
our
don't want to
plan
be
is
15 and then jump to 20. You know, then
Oh,
that
yeah.
puts
No,
all
I'm
the
right there with
burden
you.
on 1 year. And that don't
Yeah,
work.
there's I want to also be really clear, like the slide that shows, there's two things that are fixed, right, every year, and it's the revenue given to state and the recapture payment. They're fixed in how they're calculated, and we have no control over that, none. And we can grow revenue by having students come in, but the relationship between the two still exists. So we are always going to be, our operating expenses always are going to be the net of that number, or those two, the difference between the two. And we've never showed it that way, but I think it's really, really important because there are lots of other funding sources that we have that come in, but they've been drying up, right? Title dollars, we have grants from the city of Austin. There are things that dry up, and there are things that are still really, really important that we do. And so then we have to figure out can we even incorporate those into our system? If we do, it's going to put pressure on the operating expenditures that we have already. And I think that just reinforces that we have limited ability for us to impact that calculation. We can become more efficient. We can make our decisions. You know, we can grow enrollment. But at the end of the day, like, we have to be really, really thoughtful about every dollar we spend. Like, bottom line, every dollar's got to be hyper thoughtful.
Thank you. Okay, we have budgeted 10 minutes left to let people know. Who has a question? Trustee Foster. Secretary Foster.
Just to be clear that I'm reading this correctly, and perhaps to drive the point home, our problem, we are getting ever more efficient. And I bet we're among the most efficient around. There's not a lot of loosey-goosey stuff going. This seems to be driven by a decrease in property values and recapture. And so first, yes?
yes, decrease in property values, SHARS has decreased, City of Austin has decreased, we've lost federal grants. And so one of the things the superintendent and I talked about, it's almost like the perfect storm. Like what else, right? And so, yes, it's all of those things and.
So I think that's important for everyone to know how hard you all are working, how diligently and how seriously this is being taken, and we're battling a perfect storm. That we're not controlling property values, we're not controlling recapture. We're adjusting on the other side of the ledger for these realities. The dire question that I have is this a moment, or is this a permanent and cascading contraction?
It's I think based on, it's the latter. So just to be clear, I think what I've seen in my almost 8 years here, there was a time where property values were increasing at 10, 14%. Yeah, I mean, we just very quick, very high. The numbers and the way the financing worked were in our favor for a period of time, and so we were able to do things, and we were also not as tight when it comes to budget. And so what we're seeing now is a reduction in those things, and at the same time, we're getting tighter in budget because this is best practice. But it's going to continue to ebb and flow, and that's what makes this really, really hard. So when Trustee Singh just moments ago talked about how are you going to make that up? Well, we will make up a big portion of it, but if I were to sit here and say we're going to cut $35 million, in the next couple months, like knowing that there are things coming, or that the revenue is that there are savings to be had, or the fact that there's a property that's going to close in the next fiscal year, then you begin to cut bone when you're like anticipating the uncertainty, which is kind of weird to say. But that's what we're doing. That's like a lot of what Katrina and I do, is like anticipating uncertainty as best we can and incorporate into this process. But yeah, it's the latter for sure.
So what that gives rise to me for, and then I'll sort of cease my comment and question, is one, the importance, once again, of this budget cycle, but then from a board visioning standpoint, anticipating basically a new reality, and who are we going to be as this contraction continues. It is, as they say, existential to me. So I'm really sobered by this reality, and it's interesting that primaries are coming up and that elections are coming up, and that many of the things that are out of our control are things reflected in our democracy and who is in charge and what the values are of those people in charge. We need folks who are going to restructure our school finance if we're going to survive, or at least, yeah. I really appreciate, as always, the work that you all are doing, and I guess promise from my standpoint to be as serious and sober and realistic as possible as we enter this budgeting cycle.
Thank you. As we have 5 minutes left in our allotted time, additional questions? I just want to share a quick appreciation for being conservative about our enrollment projection. And also want to I know there's been discussion about doing more recruitment, being more thoughtful about that. People have been trained to help with enrollment, and would just love an update sometime in an upcoming meeting soon about just active ways that we're actually recruiting people. And I know there are a lot of people in our community who are ready to be part of that work, and just what that looks like and how people can engage. Thank you for that, because as we said, the only way we can meaningfully grow our budget is to grow our number of students. And as we're losing, just to be thoughtful about how we're also doing whatever we can to gain, in addition to making our schools a place people are excited to be, going out and talking to them about that and inviting them in as well. So thank you for that. And then and I hope we end up with way more than 66,000 students, but I also appreciate not banking on that, and I hope we are pleasantly surprised. And then with the engagement, thank you for all the engagement opportunities. I went to look to get the link for the one on Saturday and don't see it on our budget page. That seems like it's not been quite updated. I found it on the district calendar for anyone who's looking at it. But just want to make sure that's, you guys are working really hard to plan that, and we know our community shows up.
Yes.
So I want to be sure people know where to find those.
We'll get that fixed.
So thank you, I appreciate that, because I know you do really good work, and people actually show up to talk about budget on a Saturday morning in our community, which I really thank you for all the people who engage to that degree. Anything else? All right, thank you all, thank you so much for this. Anything about the superintendent report? We're good? Excited about the additional days school year pilot for where that's going to be. I hope that's really a good opportunity where we're going to try that out. Okay, can you please introduce the next item?
Thank you, President Boswell. I'd like to welcome up Christine Steenport, our Operations Officer, to give the intruder detection update.
Good evening, trustee. Here to give the notice of intruder detection audit update for the month of December 2025 and January 2026. So in those months, Austin ISD, we had 25 schools audited by TEA. 5 schools had 1 or more findings requiring a corrective action. As a reminder, TEA is required to audit 75% of Austin ISD schools during the 25-26 school year. Currently, 57.3% of Austin ISD campuses have been audited this school year. In each of the past 2 school years, TEA has audited 100% of Austin ISD schools for intruder detection audits. And of course, if there are any questions, we can answer those during closed session due to the sensitive nature of safety and security. Thank you.
Thank you, trustees. Any question about this? All right, thank you so much. Really appreciate the work and appreciate everyone on our campuses who's working to keep our campuses safe and make sure we pass all these audits. Thank you. Superintendent Segura, will you please introduce our next item?
Thank you, President Boswell. Our next item is the Gibson Internal Audit, Accounts Payable Final Report. Our partners with Gibson Consulting have provided a recorded presentation in advance of today's meeting, which is included in tonight's agenda item, and have shared a presentation with backup data. We have Greg Gibson, Ali Taylor, and Shannon Johns joining us virtually to answer any questions from the board members. Are they on the virtuals? There they are.
Hi, welcome.
Good evening.
Trustees, are there any questions about the accounts payable internal audit? Trustee Kaufman.
Thank you to Gibson and Company for the reports and both the written and the audio. But this question really is to you, Superintendent Segura, just around the understanding the importance of timely payment of our vendors and our people. And that was one of the issues that had come out of the audit, was ways to ensure that we have on-time payments for all of our vendors and others who we do business with. Short of another audit, what will be the reporting to the board in terms of improvement in that area? Like, will we be able to get an update later on improvements in the on-time payments for vendors?
I can do that as a board update notification. I very much agree with you. When we have partners that are working with us, it's very, very important, especially because many of them are smaller organizations that cash does flow. I can tell you that it has improved over the last many years, being out of an organization that paid lots of invoices. But I'm happy to write an update in a board notification, perhaps quarterly. I can create a timeline for it and just kind of show you the progress.
Yeah, I'd appreciate it. I think it's important to be aware. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments?
Yeah, my question is also for the superintendent. It's regarding the performance monitoring recommendation or the findings. I guess they're on page 10 and 11. but it's referring to, like, the finding from Gibson was that departmental performance is not regularly monitored, contributing to late payments to vendors, and also another recommendation to integrate performance targets into staff evaluations to provide clear benchmarks for assessing individual and departmental effectiveness. So is your understanding that this is just really more as they relate to financial issues, or is it just like overall performance of our different departments?
Yeah, so two things, well, three things. I think the first is if you were to look at 24, 25, and where we are today, you'll see many of these metrics have been improved. One of the things that we do or that I do is build out key performance indicators for departments. I think what we run into when it comes to accounts payable or like POs or invoice payments, so many people contribute to that process that tying kind of an individual's performance to an element within it is challenging, given the way that we're set up for performance, because there are lots of other things that individuals do. It's just one aspect of it. But as far as departmental overview and performance, that is an area for opportunity. We are also, just so you're aware, trustees, building out a survey for our principals to respond to, because I also want to understand how our principals view our departments and how we're performing to support them. And so out of that, I think will come kind of a new approach to how we evaluate department performance. So this will help contribute to that, and certainly the feedback from our principals. But yeah, it is generally overall.
Okay, and I know that our first rating is like the highest possible category, right? Is our vendor payment, is timeliness of vendor payments like one of the things that first looks at all? Or, I mean, I know it's kind of random, but.
I don't think they get to that level of granularity.
Okay.
And I came out of a lot of the worlds that where money flows like this. And what I would say is we've made a lot of improvements here. If I were to go back to 2022 or 2021, and so I know there's room for improvement for sure. And I think we compete well with other school districts as far as timeliness and payments. I hear very little of it now than I did 2 or 3 years ago, to be honest, which is also kind of an anecdotal indicator. And I would bet that y'all probably have heard less over the last year versus 3 years ago. But I'm not aware of it being specifically something that the agency looks at to determine first rating.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments? All right. Yeah, I think the only ones I'm hearing now are activity funds occasionally, which is, I know, a separate process. So thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Next up is our next audit item. Can you please introduce that?
Yes, thank you. Our next item is the Gibson internal audit. The CIS and PEAMS final report. Our partners at Gibson Consulting have provided a recorded presentation in advance of today's meeting, which is included in tonight's agenda item. They've also shared a presentation with supporting data and are ready to answer any questions from board members, and is our team and myself.
Yes. All right, trustees, any questions about this one? Trustee Hunter.
Earlier in the presentation that we had during the hearing, one of the concerns at Rosedale was incorrect I guess, assigning when it comes to, like, what are we doing? I know Dr. Angel Wilson said that there's training going on behind that. I guess I'm just wondering, don't we just have those PEAMS codes, and we know that those PEAMS codes get assigned to, like, how are we misassigning codes?
If only it was that simple, Trustee Hunter. There are a couple things that I think need to be we need to talk about. I think the first is the system itself had to be improved, right? The way that we as a central administrative staff support our campuses, that system had to improve. And so a lot of the work that technology did over the last 2 years, I'm not sure if you recall last year, Trustee Hunter, where I was sharing with our board, the improvement in PEAMS reporting actually helps us identify or get more funding from the state because students were going uncoded that should have been coded, and they were receiving services, but they weren't getting the proper code. And so we had to improve our system, and Oscar can certainly speak to much of that. The other thing is that training has to occur within our campuses because the staff at our campuses are in many cases the ones inputting the data. And so there's a lot of professional development that had to be built out and deployed so that those that are in the classroom or the ones responsible for the campus to report understand how to report. It's not as simple as, just pulling down a menu and kind of, just figuring out which one to select. You have to understand, the student experience, what services the student's receiving, and then make the connection. So there's a lot of work has gone into it. It's improved vastly already. Certainly, Oscar, feel free to speak to anything I missed, but it is not quite that simple, and that's why it was a big area of improvement. And I would say we've actually picked up funding from the state because of the improvement we made over the last year. Oscar, what do you want to add?
Sure. Good evening, President Boswell, Superintendent Segura, Board of Trustees. I think a helpful framework for this would be a framework that I call PPT, People, Processes, and Technology. So to what Superintendent Segura said, there's the technology piece, the coding piece, the system piece, but there's also consideration for do we have the right processes and are the people affecting those right processes. So it's a holistic approach to look at that, and so focusing on all three has been our strategy to improve those measures.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Trustee Singh?
You want to go?
Oh.
This for the superintendent again, I guess. Kind of two parts maybe. There are 11 recommendations in the audit, and only one of those is marked as low. So 10 are medium or high, and of those also, one of the high ones is transition of short-term funded positions to general funded positions, which I assume is going to be a significant cost. And so, the two parts are, there's a lot of recommendations in here, and, how are we going to be updated on the progress to those or the timelines for those? And then the expected costs for those too as we're going into the budget, because a lot of these seem like somewhat expensive items to implement.
Yeah, and Oscar is going to have a great response because we've actually gone through presentations where we can show all the things that we've done already. I want to be really clear, like this is a lagging data set in many ways, so a lot of the work and the recommendations here have been incorporated into the system and have already begun to progress and get embedded. So yes, there are many in here, but many of them have already been tackled or far along in the progression. So Oscar, anything you want to add to that? And so as far as updates, I think the first place is to show you how our work kind of aligns with the audit report, because we don't have like an updated report that goes alongside this, right? It's independent of us. But I'm happy to do that. Oscar, go ahead.
Yeah, we're happy to provide an update. We are on target to have many of these completed by the end of this cycle. So along with this audit, TEA implemented their new PEAMS modernization, EdFi, and so we had to do some of the work to stay in alignment with the submission deadlines anyway. So much of that work has started. Some of the other ones, I think longer term, will be completed by the next school year. With regards to, for example, the recommendation around staffing, that's why we're working with Ms. Montgomery and our vacancies and really understanding, reconfiguring those trade-off decisions of where do we make those investments and how do we leverage some of the vacancies or some of the positions and in terms of our systems and technologies. As we've moved more to a deeper partnership with Frontline, those automations create opportunities, create efficiencies, and so we don't need as many of the, let's say, technical roles to support the systems, and so that's that trade-off. And so long-term, we'll be using those savings or those vacancies to address some of the concerns in the audit, so that way we can make a sustainable decision around how we support those positions long-term.
Okay, and so then just to clarify, some of those expenses then are still to be projected out. They're not in any of the budgeting that we're doing so far.
I would say that we're looking to absorb it in our existing budget, right? By making adjustments with, as he said, vacancy savings or just other areas where we're collapsing. And so, yeah, there'll be some, but really, as we've talked about it, and I think maybe this is where we start with the update to the board via board update, is just what we've done thus far. So you can see kind of which one of these have already been woven into the work and which ones may have some budget consideration moving forward. But they're not, I mean, I can't, there aren't big numbers that would, I don't know that we wouldn't be able to manage within our existing budget.
Okay. Yeah, I guess my concern was it just seemed, my understanding of the report was that some of this is paid for, through, one, it's contractors, and two, it's being paid for outside of our general fund budget through sources that are potentially at risk or that might not continue or that we shouldn't be.
Yeah, and so this is whenever you have an initiative and you're starting something big, you typically have to expand resources, right, to meet the needs of the organization. And there have been times, and certainly this is one of those times, where we've had to rely on different funding sources to bring partners in to help us get there. I mean, when we turned over the technology system or we turned over SIS, we always get other folks to come in and help us with it. And so there is a transition period, and once the system stabilizes, then we're in a much better position to make those refinements to ensure sustainability. So there'll be some of that, Trustee Diorioste, but a lot of the big lifts that I think would move the needle on the budget, many of those have been occurring and have occurred. But what we can do is provide the presentation that kind of aligns this audit report with what we've done thus far, and then I can clearly outline kind of what to expect moving forward. That's probably the best way to provide the clarity I think you're seeking.
Yeah, I would appreciate that moving into budget season because, just some of the positions that they were talking about potentially being in jeopardy seem like ones that we need to ensure we continue having, so.
Yeah.
Thank you. Trustee Singh.
Oh, I just wanted to give kudos to Gibson. I think this is a really well-done report. It's super clear, so thank you. I did want to ask Gibson, are you all seeing school districts wanting to get audits done of their AI systems and things like that? Like you do talk about data governance and things like that, but can you just share if there's any advice or anything that we should be on our radar? And I'm sure Dr. Rodriguez also has some thoughts on that as well, because I know you're on top of it. So.
Ali, do you want to answer that? I mean, I'll let you start and I'll chime in if needed.
I think we're ready for you to chime in as needed. Thank
Ali,
you.
they can't hear you.
Oh, okay, someone's muted.
Oh, he's muted.
I think you're muted.
He's not muted actually, but he's not heard. I can share with you, we have not yet been requested to do an AI audit, if your question is specifically about AI, but we are working with clients to introduce AI into their future. A lot of our districts are in the early stages of developing policy guidelines and guardrails about how AI should be used. There's a lot of organic things happening from at the schools and in the lower levels of department. Individuals are using AI, but most of our clients are early in the stages of doing district-level, district-sponsored AI within a policy framework that guides it according to the board's direction.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
You're on.
Okay. Sorry about that. We don't use Zoom, so I guess my computer was confused with the microphone. I agree with Greg, everything he said. On the student side, in the instructional side and AI usage, we've seen it. Some school districts are piloting and working on it. And I also see some evidence of AI usage on the operational stuff, help desk, maybe human resources, chatbots responding calls from the employees, maybe level 1 help desk calls for technical support. Those are using AI agents. I think that having intentional projects, how we can incorporate AI we've seen it examples will help your financial resource allocations, but we have to be very careful as auditors. It will be missed if we don't say it. These AI, we don't want them to train our data or train their model with our data. We have to be very purposeful about how they use our data. So it has to come with the guardrails like Greg mentioned.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions? All right. Thank you so much to the Gibson team for your great work. Thank you to our policy committee for supporting that work on behalf of the board and all the staff who've been part of that. Really appreciate our relationship with you and the work you're doing. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Yeah. All right. We will now move to our consent agenda. Any consent agenda items anyone would like to pull for a separate vote? Trustee Kaufman.
Yes, I would like to pull 12.1 for a separate vote.
Okay. Anything else?
Yes. Hold on, I don't know the number. Yeah, I wanted to pull, sorry, I should have been prepared. It's the one about the tip approvals. Thank you, yes, 8.2, there it is. For separate vote, please.
Okay. Anything in addition? All right.
Separate vote, or are you pulling to? Okay.
Yeah. Pulling it from the consent agenda. Yeah. Okay. Secretary Foster, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve consent agenda items 8.1, 9.1 through 9.3, 10.1, 11.1 through 11.3, and 12.2 through 12.8.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second. Second.
Thank you. All right, trustees, any discussion on any of these consent items? All right, having a motion by Secretary Foster, a second by Trustee Whitley Chu to approve consent agenda items 8.1, 9.1 through 9.3, 10.1, 11.1 through 11.3, and 12.2 through 12.8. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. And the motion carries by all those on the dais. All right, we will now move to items pulled from agenda for consent. The first one we can discuss is, you want to start with 8.2 or 12.1? We'll start with 12.1. It got pulled first. So agenda item 12.1. Any questions or comments about this?
Due to additional comments that we received since it was posted publicly and due to some further, consideration in trying to understand the differences between GF for public complaints and FNG for student and parent complaints and DGVA for staff complaints and how all those have been impacted by Senate Bill 12. I would like to send this back to the policy committee for further review and an opportunity to address some of the questions and concerns that we've heard or that we've developed ourselves.
Additional comments on this?
The policy committee is happy to have it back, and we have a meeting coming up very soon, which we can discuss it before we bring it back to the board.
Perfect, thank you. Do we need a motion?
If there's no objection, you can.
Okay, any objection? All right, well, we will pull 12.1 to send back to the policy committee. Thank you, Trustee Kaufman. Thank you, Trustee Hunter, for that. Next is agenda item 8.2, pulled by Trustee Singh. Any comments or questions on this?
I already shared some of my concerns when we discussed it earlier, so I'm good.
Any other discussion? Okay, do we have a motion on 8. Trustee Hunter, do you have a? No. Okay.
I move to approve consent agenda item 8.2.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Separate.
Yeah, agenda item 8.2.
Agenda item 8.2, thank you.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Having any discussion further? All right, having a motion by Trustee Secretary Foster, a second by trustee Whitley Chu to approve agenda item 8.2. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Any opposed? Okay, any abstaining? All right, the motion passes 7 in favor, 1 opposed, none abstaining, including trustee Gonzalez on Zoom. Thank you. Okay, next up is agenda item for a separate vote. That's agenda item 13.1. Would any trustee like to go to an executive session before we consider agenda item 13.1?
That has been our practice.
Yes. So would you like to go and have the chance to discuss it?
I think it's be very quick. Just want to clarify some.
Perfect. Okay, so we will now recess the open meeting at 7:49 p.m. and move to executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Sections 551.074, 551.072, 551.073, 551.087, 551.076, 551.0821, and 551.071. Thank you. And would we like to just have our full executive session now, or would we like to come back, vote on this, and then go back in for our do our full executive session? Okay. So for the people with us this evening, after we come back from our executive session, we will return to the open session, take a vote on agenda item 13.1, and then adjourn the meeting. Those activities will be recorded and included in all replays of tonight's meeting. So thank you for joining us and have a good evening. We will go to executive session. We are adjourning this meeting at 7:50, or recessing this meeting at 7:50 p.m. Thank you. Okay, we will now reconvene the open meeting at 9:51 p.m. Do I have a motion to approve item 13.1?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
That was a race. Okay, we'll take trustee Hunter. All right, any discussion on this item? Okay, having a motion by trustee Singh, a second by trustee Hunter to approve item 13.1. All in favor, please raise your right hand. And the motion carries by all those on the dais. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So
Trustee
moved.
Foster.
My
Trustee Kaufman. Okay, trustee Hunter. Okay, so moved. The meeting is adjourned at 9:52 p.m.